Hey folks, it's Nate, and I've been called out. YouTuber by the name of Chris Meacham has come up with this interesting idea. He wants to try to get all the Jeep YouTubers to sort of work together. Well, maybe not work together, but at least build us a community, which seems to make a whole lot of sense to me, because Jeeping, the first thing I think of when I think about Jeeping is the community. So, awesome idea, Chris. So, CPO, Overclocked Jeeps, has called me out. And the concept here is that I get to tell you my story, how I got into this sport, why I have a Jeep, why I do this YouTube thing, and then I get to call out a couple people on my own. So you'll have to stick around till the end to find out who I'm going to call out. So I'm in the process of packing up for a weekend of wheeling. Maybe not a weekend, but I'm guiding on Saturday. It's Thursday night. Fridays are Friday, and I'd like to relax. So I figured I'd pack up the Jeep tonight. So while I pack up, I'll talk to you guys. So, how did I get into Jeeping? Well, I guess it starts out early. My dad was an outdoorsman. His dad was an outdoorsman. It only stands to reason that so am I. We like the outdoors. We hunt, we fish, we hike. None of them were into four-wheel drives, but I am. So also speaking about the men in my family, my grandfather and my father and even myself, we're all sort of tinkerers and fixers and do-it-yourselfers. So it's only natural that I have a workshop. In fact, this was my grandfather's workshop. This is the house he lived in before he passed away. My father and his brother lived here. They probably worked on their first cars in this garage. They built their first things in this garage. And my dad then taught me how to work on cars to some extent. Change oil, change brakes, change tires, all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of neat being in this garage, which is it's even neater to be in this garage and share with you guys, because I like to share what I know. And that's why I'm here. That's why I do this YouTube thing. It's not because I'm trying to get ad revenue. It's not because I'm trying to make $1 million. All that would be nice, but I really just like to share what I know. At an early age, I joined the Boy Scouts, which was only natural. My dad was a Scoutmaster when he was younger, and so, like I said, outdoors has been a thing for me and the men in my family for pretty much my whole life. Ammo cans, can't beat them, right? Unless you're Tammy. Tammy doesn't like ammo cans. Okay, so where was I? Outdoors. Right, so my first car was a 1989 S10 Blazer, four-wheel drive. Got it stuck in the mud a few times. When I was in high school, the YJ, we're talking 90s, the YJ was the Jeep that was on the road most. The CJ was out there too, obviously, but we're talking 1998 is when I graduated. That's right after the end of the production run of the YJ. So it was the common vehicle. Me and my friends would, well, we'd look for Jeeps on the road and we'd call them out. We called it the Jeep game. We'd keep score, sort of like the old punch buggy game, if you remember, where you call that punch buggy and punch someone in the arm, minus the violence. We weren't big on violence. Yeah, so anyway. So when I got my license and I got that Blazer, it was sort of only natural that eventually I'd be upgrading to a Jeep. I'd had my eyes on them forever. My dad was of the opinion that they were these unsafe, terrible things and nobody should drive them. I was going to roll it over or whatever, so that's how I ended up with the Blazer. I was commuting to college with a guy who had a YJ, a hardtop black four-cylinder YJ. I still wheel with him to this day. Hi, Jay. So I think I blame him for really getting me into Jeeps. Carpooling with him and driving my Blazer, I had a serious case of Jeep envy. So about 2 years after I got that Blazer, I bought my first YJ. And I'll talk a little bit about the string of Jeeps that I've owned in just a minute. So when I got into Jeeps, I'm a bit of a computer guy. I know that doesn't always go together, computers and Jeeps. In my case, it did. When I got into Jeeps, I needed someone to learn from. and I didn't have any Jeepers except for my buddy who was just learning in the same. He was a little bit ahead of me, but not much. So I had turned to online forums, and in the late 90s, that was in the form of news groups. Any of you that aren't into technology aren't going to care about this, but we'll just say that it's sort of like an old school message forum, but it was sort of like this intermediary between email and message forums. So I hung out there for a little while, and I learned a bit from some pioneers really in the Jeep industry. Some of them I later found on other message forums. Speaking of message forums, in around 2000 or 2001, I came across this message forum called Jeepaholics Anonymous, and I made that my home. You know how everyone has that forum, or had before Facebook, that forum that you would always return to when you wanted to be with your people. Well, for me, that was Jeepaholics Anonymous. Real friendly group of people. Jeepaholics Anonymous. A lot of really smart guys. A lot of knowledge. A lot of fabricators. Everyone did it themselves. So Jeepaholics Anonymous was a great place to learn. Learning it at Jeepaholics Anonymous, there wasn't. You couldn't ask stupid. Well, you could ask stupid questions without getting flamed. Stupid questions weren't stupid. They didn't tell you to go look at the search. They didn't tell you to go Google it. They didn't tell you it's been answered a million times. Yeah, you had those questions that got asked over and over and over again. But for the most part, you just didn't run into the flame wars. You didn't have the arguments. You didn't have the people calling you dumb for not knowing something that they already knew. After all, we were all learning, right? I was one of the youngest or greenest people there when I joined that forum, and really I always felt welcome, and it was great. And that's what I try to give to everybody else through this channel, through my own website, SWBCrawler.com, and also through guiding for off-road consulting and volunteering at the Jeep Jamboree. I just want to share what I know. I don't know everything. I never claim to know everything. I'm not a professional mechanic. I'm a home tinkerer. But I do what I can, and when I figure out how something works, I like to let other people know how I figured it out. So yeah, that's why I do this, and that's why I enjoy this. So I guess the next thing I'll tell you about is the string of automobiles that I've owned in my life. I already told you about the Blazer, but you probably don't care about that. This is a Jeep page after all. So after the Blazer, I bought my first Jeep. I bought it in 1999, and it was a 1990 Wrangler, white with a gray soft top, 2.5 liter manual transmission. I learned to drive manual on that poor thing. I just jumped right in. My mom was driving manual at the time. My dad knew how, but my mom always drove a manual, so she jumped in to teach me how to drive the thing, and it was interesting. The first clutch, the clutch that was in that when I got it, burnt out about a year after I got it. I'm surprised it lasted that long, to be honest. So yeah, that 90 YJ, as you could imagine, being a young guy, I was 19 when I got it, being a young guy, being new to Jeeps, not having a lot of guidance from anybody who really had a good head on their shoulders, and really just sort of following the mods that I found online. Well, that Jeep was kind of scattershot. I bought a 2.5-inch lift for it. And then I bought some longer shackles for it. I bought a light bar for it. I bought Casey daylighters, which were a big thing in the 90s. It was before LED lighting was really a thing. Man, those things were bright. You could hear the Jeep bog down when I turned them on. That's how much they grew. So anyway, that thing was, I mean, it was a good Jeep, don't get me wrong. But yeah, I had no plan at all. I just threw parts at it. None of it really had a plan. None of it made sense. It was just open up the Quadratech catalog and start ordering stuff. I'm just going to say that if you're a 19-year-old guy making $17,000 a year, building a Jeep this way is a bad idea, very bad idea. So after owning that for about 2 years, I decided I wanted to move up to something with a 6-cylinder. And I kind of wanted to start over because things, like I said, were real scattershot. And I felt like I could probably get more out of that Jeep by selling it, which I sold it for like $3,000 and only paid $4,000 when I bought it. I sold that, and then I bought a 4.0 YJ Islander, which I owned for 10 years. That was a 92, and that's the one that I have featured in a lot of places. It's on SWBCrawler.com. I had it as a lot of my avatars and logos and whatnot for a while because it was what I had. It was that turned into the most modified Jeep I've ever owned. I had a little more of a plan. This time I thought things through a little better. I had bought a soft top for the 90, which I took back off, the best top super top, and I put the gray one back on when I sold it. I put that on the 92. Once it was on there, I bought a 3.5 inch, I think it was a super lift, leaf spring lift kit for it, which is a lot more complete than the 2.5 that I had on the other YJ. And I got some 33s for it, if I remember, pretty shortly after I got it, and I just wheeled it. I wheeled it just like that for years, and slowly but surely I modified things that made sense. Put rocker guards on it. I got a Cherokee Dana 44 to put in the rear of that thing. I eventually put a Detroit in there and re-geared it all to 410. At the time, I was hanging out with a guy some of you might know named Pete Trasborg. He went on to become the editor of JP Magazine and has since passed away. But at the time, he wasn't anybody special. Well, he was special to us that knew him, but he wasn't famous. He wasn't working at the magazine. He was living here in New Jersey. And I would go to his place for a weekend, and we would tear my Jeep to pieces and put it back together. We did a slip yoke eliminator there one night. We did my Dana 44 there. We did my Detroit there. We did the 410s there. Roll cage. I had an essentially off-road roll cage kit in that thing. Man, I love that Jeep. I regret having gotten rid of it. So anyway, I owned that for about 10 years. In 2010, my wife was pregnant. We had been married for 7 years at that point. And I took the Jeep out to Roush Creek, and the Gauntlet video, which you may have seen, I bent my tie rod. And I got it home. It wasn't that bad. It was still drivable. And then the baby was born, my first daughter. She was born that August, which might have been weeks after I bent that tie rod. I brought the Jeep home, I parked it in the garage, and we just had other things going on. We had baby formula to buy, we had diapers to buy, we had a kid to take care of, and the Jeep just took a back burner. And it sat that way with the bent tie rod for probably 2 years, maybe 3. And I was driving a Dodge Neon as my daily driver, and that thing got creamed by a hailstorm, right? Got totaled. So I took the money that I got from the Neon, and my dad was driving a 2001 Cherokee at the time. I took the money that I got from the insurance company and bought my dad's Cherokee for $2,500. And then about a year later, 2013, I got this idea, I'm gonna sell the Jeep. I'm gonna sell the YJ. And I did. And I regretted it the instant he drove away. I wish I had kept that Jeep. I'd still be driving it today if I kept it. But anyway, I did what I did. I sold it. And then I immediately started to get the itch to get another Jeep. So also in the meantime, a friend had given me a 90 YJ that I had intended to rebuild. I was going to replace that Neon with a rebuilt YJ. And that was sitting in this very garage for years. If you look back far enough, you'll see videos of the thing I was calling DIYJ, do-it-yourself YJ. So that was sitting here too. But anyway, back to the Cherokee and the Smurf. That was the 92. I sold the Smurf, and then that was a name it earned on Jeepaholics Anonymous. They called it the Smurf because it was blue, and because it was an Islander and whatever. They like to make fun of it. So yeah, where was I? I got rambling. So I sold the Smurf, and then I had the XJ, and I had some money in my pocket. And instead of doing something smart with that, like either put the money into the XJ, or I don't know, save the money, who would do that, right? I decided to take the money and trade in the Cherokee and buy myself a 2013 two-door JK. Seemed like it made sense at the time. Our daughter was like 3 at that point, and it didn't look like we were going to have a second. So she was getting out of car seats and into booster seats. It was easier to get in and out of the back of the Jeep. I didn't feel like I needed the 4-door anymore. Bought the JK. Drove it for a year and a half, 2 years almost. And in the meantime, we, surprise, got pregnant with our second daughter. So priorities changed once again. The payment on the JK was high enough that I didn't like wheeling it because I was worried about breaking something and not being able to fix it. It was my daily driver. I felt like everything in the JK market was too expensive and I was never going to be able to modify the thing. We had a kid on the way. I needed something with some more room. So the heck was that? So we took the JK, the 13 JK, and traded it on the LJ, which you see right now, the one that I've been driving. Now, obviously, getting a car seat in and out of the back of an LJ isn't much better than in and out of the back of a JK, but we have another vehicle that we were carting kids around in more frequently. So it worked out okay, and we have room. Anyway, I can put kids in the back, and I can put stuff in the back of the LJ, which is great, because what I really needed was a family wheeler. I feel like 4-door JKs are just too big for that sort of thing, and, well, whatever. So, now I've got the LJ, and I'm being very, very deliberate about what I modify. After having been through so many vehicles, I feel like I have a good idea of what it is that works and what doesn't. I don't have experience under my belt to know how to wheel a Jeep. This thing, there was a slight learning curve with the longer wheelbase, but as soon as I figured that out, I mean, it just works. The thing just works. I've only changed a few things about it. I put an 1 3/4 spacer lift on it, so I get a little bit of lift. Put on the 33s and some steel wheels because the aluminum wheels were just getting beat to hell on the trails. Excuse me. And the Curry anti-rock. I built some sliders for the side, some rocker protection, because that's important. And I'm just wheeling it. I mean, there's really not much else done to this thing. I put this harness bar in the back so that I can put the harness on for the kids. Yeah, it's just a great Jeep. I intend to make this thing a lot more than it is now, but that'll come with time and money. Well, 2 things that I don't have a whole lot of this second, but I'm working on that. So yeah, I'd love to see this thing one day on 35s or 37s, long arm suspension, a couple inches more of lift to clear all those tires, some high clearance fenders. You know, those are the core of what I want to do. Lockers, obviously. Sounds like there's elephants up there. Kids are running around. Anyway, lockers, obviously. I want to keep this thing for a while. However, thinking ahead to the future, I think it'd be great to one day get an old military MB and restore that. I don't know what I would do with it if I had it, but I just love the look of those things. I certainly couldn't drive it every day, but it would be fun to have and, I don't know, do something with. I also want to stop driving this thing to and from the trailhead. I'd love to, I drive a Jeep Patriot now every day to work. I'd love to someday trade that in on a pickup truck and get a trailer, tow this thing to the trailhead. It just makes sense because of the sort of trails that I do. All right, folks, so that's my Jeep story. I'm supposed to call somebody else out. A few of somebody else's out. So here's who we're going to call out. 1, the Pabst Boys Roadhouse. Clyde, calling you out. 2, Spacerag, calling you out. And 3, Jeeper X. I want to hear your Jeep story. All right, folks, so there you go. That's my Jeep story, and I'm sticking to it. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. I'm relatively new to this YouTube game. I'm still trying to build up subscriber base, so please hit that subscribe button. Let me know if you like this video. Let me know if you like my story. Thanks for watching.